Hello and welcome to episode 79 of the Green Arrow, an FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. On the day Antonio Conte returns to the Premier League to take over at Tottenham, coinciding beautifully with their wonderful run of fixtures, starting at Everton in game week 11. Exciting times for Tottenham and indeed FPL. My name is Fergi and a big welcome to my co-host Adam Hopcroft. Adam, we will be talking everything Spurs, mainly in this episode. But firstly, most importantly, do you know what colour your arrow was in game week 10?
I think I got a red arrow, a small red arrow.
It was the minutest of red. You went from like 180 to 183, I think.
Yeah. Got two back-to-back mini red arrows. I think I've dropped 5k in 2 weeks. So not disastrous. I think looking at my team, I didn't have Reece James and I didn't have Ronaldo. And I think those two defined whether you had a great week or not. So I had Sanchez in goal, Trent, Rudiger, Cancelo and Chilwell. And then Salah captain. I had Gray last night, who was disappointing. I played him instead of Gallagher. That went well.
I saw his XG was something like 0.5 though. I didn't watch the game, but I was surprised to see his XG was so high.
Yeah, wow. He's not a player that I've wanted to have. He's been lingering since my wild card in game week 5.
Like a nasty smell.
Yes, exactly. I think I've still been recovering from that. I had Havertz's assist. I think Havertz did okay the weekend. And then Rafinha for a nice 9-pointer. So pleased with Rafinha.
I bet you are.
Yeah, well, I like him as a player. So the less people that have him, the better. And then Antonio and Vardy doing nothing up front.
Forwards again, as we mentioned last week, wasn't it? The forwards are struggling this season.
Yeah, I think Antonio was a little bit unlucky because in both of the third and the fourth goal, where Bowen was played through on the third one, obviously it was a decent save from Martinez, so that would have been an assist. And then it was it Lanzini that squared it for Bowen on the second one. So yeah, it was maybe a touch unfortunate there, but I'm sure we'll be talking through Antonio at some point today. So yeah, disappointed. And then obviously I had some points on my bench. And as we know, or any listeners to the Green Arrow know, that if I have points on my bench, they never ever come into my team. Right. I think there's an unwritten rule where if I get bench points, they stay on the bench. And I think the Livramento one, yeah, that's fine. I'm not too shocked by that. I think the Gallagher one though, I mean, I was either benching or selling him this week. So for him to get 13 points, I could just see the
mate, whenever there's bench points and they're flipping. Come on now. No, I know you are right. And you were lucky with Gallagher. I say, yeah, you were lucky with Gallagher.
I wasn't unlucky with Gallagher, but I think I've seen some people get some jammy bench points this week. So I'm a little bit bitter on that, but overall, yeah, it was a nothing game week, really. I haven't really changed in rank too much. If anything, it's probably been good because someone like Gallagher is now probably a better pick than he was a week ago. So maybe it's one less problem that I've got to solve. So yeah, all in all, fairly meh, I think. Just let's go on to the next game week. I obviously got a red arrow. You wildcarded 2 weeks ago, didn't you? And you got a red arrow last week. How did you get?
I had a green this week. I had a big green last week. So I had a red arrow this week, mainly because I took Rafinha out for Foden, which, you know, it's easy to say, oh, it's the wrong move. But I always do say that, you know, I always like to look forward with my team, and no single game week kind of defines anything. So I was having a look. I've actually had 4 red arrows now over the last 5 game weeks, but I'm still roughly at the same rank I was after game week 3 or 4. So there's nothing's really changed. I think what's kind of happened is I've been playing the, you know, EO game, you know, not getting in players because they're highly owned, mainly on the captaincy. But I think where I've been a bit unfortunate maybe is my low-owned players have been unlucky. Players like Jota, you know, players this week like Foden, Son, Tony, Havertz. They're not quite doing it for me, and I think this is, well, I say it's unlucky. I'm not sure if it's unlucky or not, but it's not quite happening for me at the moment. But I'm holding my own rank-wise. without pulling up any trees, which is never a bad thing. So I'm hoping that kind of turns soon, and some of the punts that I bring in nice and early actually do well. Havertz in particular has got 1 assist in 10 goals for Chelsea in the last 2 weeks, which is just insane considering, he started both games. But yeah, Foden was unlucky. Obviously had a fantastic assist, which was ruled out very marginally for offside.
Correctly for offside, yeah.
Correctly for offside.
It was factually correctly. He was offside. He had to cheat to get the assist, and it was correctly ruled out.
But yeah, just in general, reasonably happy. It is a red, but I'm still at a decent rank, and I've still got a very good team going forward.
Your team going forward is in good shape, and I think sometimes it's not a bad thing when players blank, because the likes of Son, Foden, Tony with his fixtures, you're going to get the upside sooner or later if you stick with those players. I think
this is it, and I've got Mbeumo as well in there, already for next week. So I've got to double up against Norwich and stuff. So like I say, it's a funny old season because I've had 4 reds out of 5, but I'm still happy with basically every decision I've made. It's just not quite going my way, I think. Welcome everyone in the chat. We've got a buzzing lobby this evening. Everyone's very, very excitable. It's fantastic. Dan, evening, FPL Finding Glory. Good evening all. Mr. Conte included. Come on, you Spurs. Good evening, Reese Ennis. Alberis, after 5 red arrows and OR falling down, it's time for a green arrow. Absolutely, Alberis. You're right there. Craig says, hi all. Is anyone else having a stinker of a season? FPL Sponge is in the house. James Beacock had a green arrow. FPL Big Head, Chris Ellis, Rupert Scenes, League Saint. Good evening, everyone. Absolutely fantastic. FPL Tips is in with us as well. Colin Bugler says, hit that like. Thank you, Colin. Appreciate that. FPL SWAT asks, now that the dust has settled, would love to know Adam's thoughts on Dean Smith. Now, we normally only do about an hour and a 40 podcast. So, if you could maybe just spend a minute or so, Adam, on Dean Smith, it would be appreciated. Looking forward to Villa's fortunes.
Yeah, I think I might have tweeted on Sunday straight after the game, it's time for a change. And a few people responded and put, Fergie's not that bad, leave him alone. But I think he's going to, the board will be patient with him, I think. And, he's done a lot of good things for Villa. He's taken Villa from mid-table in the Championship to where we are now. And I think on the whole, he's got a lot right. And he probably does, on reflection, he does deserve a little bit of patience. He's been unlucky this season. We had a lot of disruptions at the start of the season. He's had a lot of injuries as well and not had his best players available. My only worry is I think there's a few fallings out amongst the squad. So I think dropping Mings I thought was a bad decision.
It's a strange one.
Yeah, he's a captain, and even though he hasn't been great, him and Konza play well together. I just think it was a bad decision. I actually think that cost us on the day because I don't think we'd have had the errors with with House and Konza that led to the sending off. I don't think that would have
should have been a double sending off. Do you think?
I think House should have gone. I think that
I thought it was one, not the other. I thought it should have been House and not Konza. I'd rather House got sent off than Konza, but I think actually looking back at it, we're probably lucky not to have 2 reds. We didn't deserve anything from the game. So I think maybe Smith. I think this Southampton game on Friday is huge for Smith, and I think he'll probably get that, and then maybe the Brighton and Palace games. But if he doesn't turn it round in that time frame, I think we need to look elsewhere. Okay. Tom Bosman, Tuesday, the new Friday. Thanks to Fergie and Adam. Thank you so much, guys. Dale Turner, evening, lads. When is Fergie bringing in Troy O'Reilly? Come on, Dale. That's a little bit unfair. Hey, listen, you've got to stick him out there, right? I've got a new one this evening. I've got a couple actually. I've got a couple who I think. I'll
tell you what. When we meet up, I'm gonna have a great night out.
You're gonna be absolutely
I would have to put my hand in the pocket, will I?
I've got another one or two.
Pookie. Oh, can't wait.
Another one or two this evening. We'll line up.
Pookie looked good the weekend, didn't he? Traore did even make the pitch. He's Anyway, I look forward to the next shout. You've had a few gems in fairness. You called Gundogan last season. We've got to balance it up. You have called some really good ones. So
League Saints, first time watching live as I'm stuck in isolation after testing positive for COVID on Friday. Completely asymptomatic and very bored. Love listening to the show on catch up usually. Big shout out to you, League Saints. Hope you feel better soon. It's not nice. I was the same a few weeks ago and it's absolutely horrible. So hope you enjoy.
Yeah, get well soon, Lee.
Get well soon, indeed. Okay, for any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams, which is 7 p.m. I was going to say BST then, but it's now GMT, isn't it? Every Tuesday evening, right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. It would be much appreciated. So, with Conte potentially being a bit of a game changer from here on in, we'll take a look at how this could affect our FPL plans. Do we wait and see? Do we jump in? Who are the best assets to own and in which order? And what does this mean for our transfer plans over the coming weeks? We'll look at the best transfer options over the coming 6 game weeks, answer a few Twitter questions, look at the Game Week 11 expected match results. We'll take a look at the best captaincy options for Game Week 11. We'll hold our weekly YouTube competition. And finally, take a look at the top of the FFH_Green Arrow Mini League. Don't forget, all the data we show and much, much more is available for you to use yourself at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. You can join by using the top link below for a 7-day free trial. So firstly, we've got the fixtures on screen off the fixture ticker from Fantasy Football Hub, looking at Spurs for the next 8 game weeks. So they are 6th overall in terms of the ticker. If you look at just the next 5 fixtures, they are top. They have an incredible set of fixtures coming up. So they have away to Everton, obviously first, bit of a hapless Everton at the moment, then home to Leeds, away to Burnley, home to Brentford, home to Norwich, before they embark on a few more difficult ones, away to Brighton, away to Leicester, and home to Liverpool. So I suppose, firstly, Adam, what are your really, really high-level initial thoughts? As soon as you saw Conte was going to Spurs, how do you think that affects FPL?
How do I think it affects FPL? I think it makes Spurs options more appealing, but I think it will take a little bit of time.
You do you?
For the I think it'll be interesting to see how. I mean, a lot of people are talking about the 3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2 setup, and I think looking at Spurs squad, I can see him going with that. So, but I think I'm going to watch them with just watch them with the Everton game, and the obvious. There's probably 3 or 4 really obvious ones that could appeal. I think both Kane and Son, particularly if they're both playing up front, I think there's arguments for both of them. And I think they could both do as well as each other. And I don't think it's a simple a case of Kane being better than Son or vice versa. I think it's very team dependent and also which direction you want to go. So, for example, why Kane could be better than Son is it's a really simple move to Ronaldo in game week 15 or 16. And I think they'll score fairly similarly. And it could simply be a case of, do you prefer... We've talked about forwards not quite hitting the mark. So is it better to maybe go... I'm just trying to think of 2 players roughly. Is it better to maybe go Kane and Foden or Son and Vardy, for example? That's why I'm thinking at the moment, because I'm not that excited by any of the forwards, I quite like Kane. The other reason I quite like Kane is he's got 1 goal this season. Has he got any assists? He's got 1 goal and 1 assist, hasn't he? Kane is far too good, and I don't care what people say. He's a world-class player. He's got a new manager coming in. He's far too good not to have a spell, and I think the fixtures are set up quite nicely for that. I can't really argue against Son because I think Son. I think in isolation, both Son and Kane will be great options, and it will just be interesting whether Son will play up front or he'll play if he goes more 3-4-3 and he plays in behind. So I think watch closely for Son's role, but I think both Kane and Son will be excellent options. And then the other area to really look out for is the wing backs and who plays there. I mean, Reguilón's probably the obvious one, and I think with a lot of people playing 4-5 at the back, there could be a really easy move. I mean, you could go for the triple up. I think I was looking at it earlier, and Son and Kane are quite expensive, so you'd have to save money elsewhere. It could mean ditching someone like Trent and maybe going for Son, Reguilon, but or ditching Trent to maybe someone like James or Chilwell, or just saving the extra million, thinking that they can match him, and then go for Son and Kane. So I think I think my initial reaction is that it's good for those players, particularly if he goes 3-5-2 with both up front. I can't argue against either. If you've got an either or, I think it's team dependent. So you're set up with Son currently. You're not going to destroy your team to go in and get Kane initially when we've got no data or evidence. For me, it's probably easier to get Kane than Son with where I'm at the moment and where I want to get to. But I think there'll be I actually don't think there'll be much in it point wise. And I've looked at some data over the last couple of seasons, because I thought this season's a little bit irrelevant because of Kane's motivation and how they've been set up by Nuno.
Hang on a minute. I've got slides and slides of stats coming up from this season, Adam. So please don't say it's irrelevant, because I've wasted my whole bloody time.
Well, we can cut that bit out. So nobody's seen it.
Okay, thank you. Hope may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.
So what I was trying to say is that from Kane's perspective, I think so I've looked at the last 3 or 4 seasons, and actually the points per match and expected points per match, they've been pretty even across the last 3 or 4 seasons. There's not been much in it. I think 2 years ago, Son was well above Kane. Kane was above Son last year. And then the season before was really close. So I think they're both great options. And I think it depends which player suits your team. But I think they should come into our thoughts. And I just fancy Kane to have a bit of a renaissance. I think other players to watch out for. I think someone like Lucas Moura could be a shout. And it could be that for those that don't have the money to go for Son, could go for Moura, for example. But I think the obvious answer, I know there's been some great analysis of seeing on Conte and his systems and all of that. But I think, like anything, you do need to wait and see how he sets up, because he has played 4 at the back before, I think when he went to Chelsea originally, that's what he did do. So I think we just got to see how he sets up, see how they perform against Everton. You're seeing Kane's body language. Is he up for it? Is there a change in it? So, and then I think probably the fixture to target bringing him in is the Leeds match. I mean, what do you think?
I think firstly, in terms of Spurs, the personnel hasn't changed much in the last year, and I think that's important, because it's very easy to say, Spurs have regressed, and stuff. For me, it's purely a system issue, which has massively affected motivation and confidence. And I think I personally think the first thing that Conte will want to do is get them solid at the back first, playing on the break. They've got Kane and Son, who we know are fantastic on the break, particularly Son. Moira, is rapid as well, as you said. So I think the question for me is not at all if it will turn around, it's when. But
agreed.
I also think in terms of Kane and in terms of his motivation, I thought about this afternoon actually. But Conte, it's fair to say, is one of the best managers in the world, and he will be around for a long time, managing a lot of top teams. I think Kane will, unless Spurs go in and win the league, right, which is very, very unlikely, obviously, he'll still be looking for a move, I think, unless Conte starts to build a superb team at Spurs, which he's only there for initially 18 months with a year to extend. The point I'm trying to get to is it is potentially likely in the future years, wherever Kane ends up, that he will have Conte as his manager as well, because Conte could end up at Man City in a few years' time or wherever else, or if Conte goes somewhere else. And I think Kane will know this, and I think he knew that under Nuno it didn't really matter, because Nuno was never going to be his manager at the absolute height of his career wherever he ends up. Whereas Conte is different. Conte is a world class who could walk in and manage basically any team he wanted at some point in the next 5, 6, 7 years, couldn't he? And so I can see Kane drastically kicking himself at the backside.
Agreed.
And really, I think we'll see it at Everton. I'm not saying he's going to score goals per se, because that's obviously dependent on the rest of the team and how they play and things. But I do think we will see that energy and hunger which has been lacking. So I think that's probably the first thing. I think in terms of what it means for FPL, I think it's really obvious, right, that Son and Kane all of a sudden become incredibly attractive options. Son was anyway. I mean, he's scored 50 odd points already this season, and even in the last 2 games when Spurs haven't looked very good, he's been the only one having shots on target. So I think for me, he's probably the one I'm most excited about. I think in terms of Kane, for me, I think it all comes down to captaincy for game week 12. And we've been saying this for weeks and weeks, haven't we? Because I personally think paying over 12 million for a player when there's so many incredible options around is potentially a bit of a waste of funds, especially when we can afford to have, Chilwell and Reece James and, Trent and Cancelo and all these great, great mid-price mids, cheaper mids even, Gallagher and Smith Rowe and wherever else, even when we got Tony and Antonio who are scoring well. I'm not sure we need to destroy our teams to get in Kane unless we're going to captain him, which I think this weekend will have a massive impact on what happens in the on the international break. So if Salah blanks against West Ham and Kane gets a couple of goals against Everton, you know what's going to happen. It'll just be complete sea change. And I suppose it's up to us with our own risk appetite on our teams whether we feel that we can go without Kane, or whether even Son is at least as good an option as Kane for the armband as well. Because I never have thought that previously, just because of the way that Son has he's tended to hang round on the left a bit too much for me. But more recently, he's been playing as the front man and kind of Kane in behind in the last kind of season or so, haven't he? So I do think we've got the stats on screen now for this for this season as well. Kane versus Son. Son outstats Kane in everything: goals, assists, shots on target, shots in the box, XG, big chances, key passes. The only thing that Kane is beating him on is XA, and he's had 2 big chances created. So that actually shows there that Kane this season, and I know you mentioned we can pretty write off the stats in this season, but if you look at what that narrative is there, Kane is more of a creator this season, whereas Son is the main man up front. So I think that my initial instincts is to purely, I think Son is the most important one, but the Kane captaincy in game week 12 could be massive because Salah's got Arsenal as well. And the thing with Arsenal, they've obviously tightened up massively, haven't they, over the last few weeks? I think they've won, 5 out of the last 7 games or something like that. They haven't lost in ages. So that's maybe not as attractive as it was a few weeks ago. We've got a few heat maps now on screen for fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, again comparing Kane versus Son for big chances, touches, shots and key passes. You can see from this as well, especially on touches and big chances, Son is there. Son is there, and so I think he's the one to get first. But I think we'll have some, I think we'll get some massive clues this week on Kane.
If I was a betting man on who will get the most points over the next 5 or 6 game weeks, for getting value, I would go Kane. I just think it's set up for him motivation wise. He's got a little bit of an ego as well. He wants to be the main man. He likes being the top scorer. It's not obviously happening at the moment. If I could bring him in one move this weekend, I would probably do it. And I'd be very, very tempted, given how good West Ham looked defensively, to captain him.
Yeah, I know.
He's got a good record. He's got a good record at Everton. I think he got a brace there last season. For me, Kane, more than anybody else, is a huge confidence player, and I think he can just turn it on. I think he's that good.
I completely agree.
And yeah, if I could bring Kane in, I probably wouldn't want to do Vardy to Kane, for example. But I think if I could bring him in one move, because I know a few people have got money left over, or maybe still own Lukaku, for example, I would do it, and I'd be tempted to captain him. Because I'm not fancying Salah away at, and we're going to. I don't want to go on to that, but I'm not fancying Salah away at West Ham. Having watched West Ham closely the weekend.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and it's a funny one because, as we said last week, Salah is permacapped the rest of the season now, isn't he?
But I said last week he wasn't.
No, yeah, sorry, I'm sorry about you. I'm saying about this narrative. Yeah. He's gone from permacap now to actually. It's interesting because we've got some captaincy data a bit later on the captaincy stats, but I suppose the big question then, so in terms of our teams and and looking at the setup of many FPL teams, so if someone has got no Spurs, so you're saying your priority would be to get Kane in for game week 11. What if no one has an easy route to either player? Do you think it is worth trying to force through, potentially by taking a hit, or do you think you can afford to wait to game week 12?
Oh, I think you can afford to wait to game week 12 with the Leeds match. Definitely. I don't think bringing him in this week is essential, but I'd be tempted to gamble on Kane. That's all I'm saying. I think it's so team dependent because I don't think there'll be much in it. I think if you've got a setup which is quite heavy in midfield and low up front that you don't want to change, and then I think go with Son. I think if you've got at the moment, I could do either, but I quite like the idea of having a really easy move to Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And if I bring in Son, I could even take a -8 in the international break and bring in Son, Kane, and Region or something like that, and just triple up and go for it. I probably won't do that. I'll probably just go for Kane, but I think there is, I think if you've got, I think if you've got an easy route in midfield, go Son. If you want to maybe play the premium forward game, which this is what we were talking about, wasn't it? From quite a few game weeks back, we're like, you actually said this to me, that actually having Kane is an advantage because you can captain him and then just move him to Ronaldo. So yeah, I think it's tough, but I think we'll obviously see against Everton how they set up, how he looks. Does he look more hungry? He could still be disinterested, but I very much doubt that.
Absolutely no chance. He may not score the goals or get the returns, but if we don't see a different Kane, I'll eat my wig because I don't own a hat. Well, I don't own a wig. Don't know why. I interviewed and I own a wig, but we will see a very, very different Kane, a different Spurs. But
I think Everton last night. I didn't see the game, but I mean, by all accounts, they weren't brilliant. So yeah, I'd be very, very tempted if you can bring Kane in this weekend or even Son. I'd be tempted to do it.
Yeah. James Harden in the chat. West Ham concede in every game. Salah returns in every game. Why would you not captain Salah? I think West Ham maybe got. I want to see 3 clean sheets this season, which is not much out of 10 in all fairness. 30%. I'm sure we'll touch more on that. As I say, the captaincy thing. But it is interesting how we've got a poll as well, and considering Salah was permacap last week, that our poll doesn't share that view.
Oh, interesting.
Team structure, you mentioned then, a really important point as well, in terms of getting on Kane, because I've been looking, if I want to get Kane in game week 12, because I've still got bloody Raya in my team, I'm going to waste a transfer on a keeper, which is a shame. So if I want to get Kane in game week 12, I either need to take a -4. I actually think I need to take a -8. And
yeah, what's your route to Kane?
It would be Havertz down to like a 4.5 or something, or even I could even maybe do Havertz down to someone like Smith Rowe or Gallagher, but then I need to take out another player, whether it be a premium defender or someone along those lines, and that's just to get Antonio up to Kane. So
obviously you need to do -8 to get. So you need to do a defender and
Havertz down, and take Antonio out to get to Kane. Which just
I don't think that's worth it.
It's not worth it. It's not.
That's why I'm saying it's team specific. So my situation at the moment is very different. That if I want to get Son in for Havertz, I have to take a hit next week
Yeah.
because I'm about 0.2 or 0.3 out. Because the move I intend on making this week is Antonio to Tony, which I'll touch on why later. I've watched Antonio and I'm not too worried about that.
Well, you kind of watched him yesterday then, because he should have had a couple of goals, a couple of assists at least.
Couple of assists, yeah, but I think there's better. I think their fixtures leads to form in most cases, so I'm not too worried about that. But then what it allows me to do is Vardy to Kane straight after the international break. So that, I think, just by setting up that move, it's worth it. And also I back Tony to outscore Antonio in the next 5. So I might as well have the extra 2 million or whatever it is, 1.5 million.
Fair enough.
I think, unlike you, I've sold Antonio, so I've not got him at 7.5 anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's easier for me to sell him than for you to sell him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But just finally then, I suppose, on Spurs, we've got a graphic up now from the Opta side. We had it up earlier briefly. We've got it sorted by expected points, and Son is top for us. So he scored 55 FPL points. He's got expected points of 47. Kane, which we did spot last week when we looked at the expected points, he's only got 25 FPL points, but his expected points is 40. So he's massively underperformed against his expected points, as we saw last week, which is interesting because FPL points is obviously one metric you can look at for the form of a player, but both Adam and I like expected points because it gives probably a truer reflection of the actual performances. Lloris is up there. Højbjerg, surprisingly, is up there as well in terms of he scored 33, which basically matches his expected points. Dyer, Reguilon. If we go down into the depths of Mora, Skip, and Dombele and Dele, but do any of those other players, do any of those get you excited? I know you mentioned Mora. He's had 14 shots actually, but only 3 on target, 8 in the box. So he's the third best kind of attacking wise in terms of shots and things like that. But his XG is very low, only 0.6, XA of only 1. I think but again, and you're right, you're kind of right in what you mentioned earlier in terms of Spurs haven't been normal Spurs this year, and Conte is going to change the system as well. Is there anyone else in that Spurs team apart from those you've mentioned?
No, not really, because not at this stage. It could be if you want a cheap defender, you might want to look at one of the 4.5, 4.6 defenders, but I think there's so much value in defence and so many options in defence, you probably won't. I think Reguilon's probably the one, and it depends what he does with the right wing back spot, but I'll be reluctant to go in on that position because it could get rotated or changed about. So I think for me, the tried and tested are Kane, Son, and Reguilon. I think are probably the 3 best ones to go for. I know it's nothing exciting, but we haven't seen him set up the team. We haven't seen his ideas yet. Everything at the moment is guesswork, and I know there's been some good guesswork going on, but surely it's better just to see how he does against Everton. And have they've got a game this week, haven't they, in the conference?
Yeah, they have. I want to say Vitesse.
Yeah. So be interesting. Maybe sets up he tries to put a team together. For that match to try and get them playing together. Be interesting to see that. So for me, it's all wait and see at the moment.
Okay, and just finally on Spurs, we've got a metric here. We've got a graph showing players' expected FPL points against FPL points per appearance. As we can see, Salah, as you would expect, is right far and away the best in the league by an absolute mile. Antonio, in all fairness, who Adam is taking out this week, has also looked pretty good so far, obviously. I think I want to hold on to Antonio, not just because of the next 5 game weeks or so, but I think I mentioned last week their 6 or 7 game weeks after this little run is really nice. I don't really want to be messing around, hopping in and out of strikers, and I'll lose a ton of value on him as well. Foden is there, Mane is there, who we keep overlooking. You don't overlook him you overlook him in terms of getting him in your team, but not in terms of a pick.
No, I like Mane, and I think he's a really, really good pick. But it's yeah, it's if you're looking at Kane and you've got Salah, it's just very difficult. He's very difficult to squeeze in. And I think the fact he plays for Liverpool, if we were perma captain in Salah, it'd be very easy to go, well, let's have a second one from there to give us a bit of an advantage. But I think if you want to give yourself an option with a different fixture, you don't really want 25 million invested in one team, do you? With your two premiums.
No, agree. And just some other players on this graphic. I think I mentioned Foden, Cancelo, Jota, Bowen is one. I want to touch on Bowen in a minute. Lukaku's in there actually, Ronaldo, and Son is on there, which is just another, it's just another another weighting towards Son, I suppose, in terms of how he's performed so far this season.
Is there Antonio on there? He's not, is he?
Yes, he is. He is, yeah. He's in there. He's right in the middle. You're looking at the right one. I don't know if you're looking at the right one.
Hang on, so what am I looking at? Expected points.
It's like a.
Oh no! I'm getting ahead of myself, I think.
You are. So you're getting excited. Jerry said, well done to Sam, because Sam said, Gallagher scored 2 goals at West Ham. Do you not think Salah will return to West Ham? Only keep 1 clean sheet at home, and that was against Spurs. Yeah, it is interesting.
Come on, don't compare Salah to the mighty Gallagher. Come on, that's an insult to Gallagher.
George asked, anyone else feeling getting Spurs players is a trap at the moment? And Jerry says, total trap. I would stay away. Let us know in the chat what you think about Spurs, whether it is a wait and see. But the thing in FPL, as we know, is if you do wait and see sometimes, you're then kind of, you're bringing in players then over a period of 2 or 3 weeks to try and get to them, by which time their run will have nearly ended and people are moving on to the next players. I think it's quite a big thing in FPL. It's not just being able to identify who the best players are, then jumping on a week or 2 later. It's sometimes about taking a bit of a risk and hoping it pays off. And if it doesn't really matter, because you've got the rest of your team to score your points for you. But if it does kick off, that's when you really fly up the ranks. I think Kane on the weekend was only about, or late last week, was only 5% owned. He's probably a bit more now, I would guess. I think Son was about 16% owned, so they're still very, very low owned in the context of things. Okay, let's have a look now then at predicted points for the next 6 weeks. So this is for game week 11 through to 16 to help us identify potentially some players who are interested in bringing in over this period. Got a couple of differentials as well, maybe we can talk about, but total predicted points for the next 6 game weeks. Kane is top with Salah, both on roughly 39 points. Son is on 38. De Bruyne is still quite high on 36. And then we go down to Mane and Vardy, who are down at 33. Trent, Ronaldo, Chilwell, all at 32. Tony, Fernandes at 31. Then Cancelo, Grealish, Foden, Greenwood, Robertson, et al. There. So no massive surprises there, I don't think. Reece James isn't in there purely because when we work out the predicted points, we put some minutes in, but you have to apply your own layer of discretion here. At the moment, it predicts James is still going to share minutes over the next 5 or 6 game weeks, where it thinks that Chilwell is now first choice. Obviously, we've been talking a lot about Spurs, Kane and Son. They are first and third, only a point aside, which I think is probably fair. But which players, Adam, over the next 5 or 6 weeks, either on this list or off this list, do you think are they kind of optimal players moving forward?
Well, I think this is the perfect time to talk about Tony and Antonio, because I just had a look at the points predictor over this, because I was just looking at just forwards, exactly the same time frame, because I wanted to see where Antonio turned up in between 11 to 16, and I went down past 10 and had to load for more, and I think he's about 15, 16, 17, 18. He's about 18th in terms of forwards over the next however many game weeks.
Yeah.
So I think there's about 8 or 9 points difference between Tony and Antonio.
Yep.
So the way that I see it, is I made a lot of points about Tony last week, and I feel that all my points were valid. And I think a few other people are catching on and saying that he doesn't score and all of this. But I think fixtures are key. And I reckon if I played up front against Norwich and Newcastle, I reckon I'd have a chance of getting something. So I'm going to back that Tony's a little bit better than me. Not much, but we're going to. But I think against Burnley, he had a decent chance. He looked all right. He got a goal and assist in the cup, the match before away at Stoke. So I'm going to back Tony, and I think Antonio's fixtures. I think they're tough, and I don't see any holes in that. Even when he could quite easily score against Liverpool, I won't back against him. But the player that I like for West Ham is Bowen, and when watching the weekend, Bowen looks so much more dangerous than Antonio. And I think for the price difference, and I looked at Bowen's minutes as well. He's pretty much been involved in every match. He's very rarely taken off as well in the league. So I like Bowen, and I think for me, because I need about 2 million to fund the Kane move, I just think it's such an obvious move to make. It could backfire, but if I just look at it over 5-6 game weeks, do I expect Tony to score more than Antonio? I'm sure you'd probably say it's logical that would happen. The Hub Predictive is predicting it. I didn't particularly like Brentford's performance the weekend, but I think I'm going to go with it. I mean, the other options I could look at is Armstrong, is Che Adams, but I think Southampton, who they play up front, is unpredictable. And I'm just Tony. I know he's 90 minutes on penalties, and I think he's got the sort of attitude and a bit of arrogance that's going to want to get a few goals. So I'm backing Tony. I think other people on the list. There's a couple that I'm not surprised about, but I'm going to say something controversial now, but I don't think City were as good with De Bruyne in the side as versus with him out the side. And I've thought this for a while. There was a spell last season. It was the Gundogan spell, actually. I don't know if you can remember, but when he was playing false nine or when he was playing in midfield and making the late runs, I thought they had such a balanced team. Yeah. And I felt everybody was contributing. I think the problem with De Bruyne, I mean, he's a world-class player, and there's no point going, saying that he is a world-class player. But I think De Bruyne is better, in my opinion, when you've got an out-and-out number 9, because what ball does he like to play? That sort of arced cross into the box from sort of halfway in his, halfway enough the touchline. And if you think of all the assists he's got for Aguero for the years, maybe the answer is to play Jesus through the middle, and maybe that would make De Bruyne better. But if I'm being honest, I mean, if you look, I don't think he didn't start against Brighton, did he? The week before, I don't think he did. And I just think from watching City last year when they went on that run when he was injured for a lot of it, I don't think saying they're a better team might be a bit of a stretch, but I think they're more balanced as a side. And I quite like the combination of Rodri, Gundogan, and Bernardo as that midfield three. I think it works really well. So I know De Bruyne's up there, but there's not a chance to spend 12 million on him. Mane's a Much better option. Mane, it's not even close for me. And I think Mane's, possibly. I think Mane and Salah are obviously probably the two. I think probably the four that are going to be top scorers are Kane, Son, Mane, Salah will be the four that I would look at. I think there's a couple of players that aren't on there. So I think there's a few on there that are a little bit. I'm not really feeling Mbeumo, to be honest. I think got good fixtures, but I think his finishing's a bit erratic, so I wouldn't be too excited about him.
Well, he's millimetres out. He's at the post 6 times. Even
I'm not. I don't think any of them. No, I'm not. I'm no. I think there's a mixture of bad finishing in there as well. So okay. I'm not convinced on him as an option personally. Who else is there? There's a few players I'm surprised aren't in there. There aren't any Arsenal players, are there?
No, I've got Aubameyang on my list.
Aubameyang was the first one.
Yeah.
I think in terms of strikers at the moment, I don't think there are many better. So I was really surprised not to see an Arsenal player in there. I know they've got a few tough fixtures like United and Liverpool, but I think they're one of the form teams in the league. So that was I suppose the bigger mission from my perspective.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree on Bowen. And I think if I was to wildcard now, I'd probably go Bowen over Antonio, because I think they'll score quite similarly, over the next, whatever, 6, 8 to 10 game weeks. And obviously he's a couple of million less now. So I think I would do that for sure. Saying that, I still think Antonio's got a lot to offer, and I'm very reluctant to get rid of him. I'm very reluctant to get rid of him. And like I say, I know everyone will be wanting to clamber back on him in a few weeks. Okay, it is game week 18, right? Which is a while off. However, we're not going to be using our wild cards then. And what I don't want to do is be using 2 of my 6 transfers in that period, taking Antonio in and out basically, because they're home to Norwich, home to Southampton, away to Watford, away to Palace, home to Leeds, and then straight after that they got United, Watford, Leicester and Newcastle. They play Watford twice in 5 game weeks, and they've got home games against Norwich, Southampton, Leeds, Watford and Newcastle, all in that run. That stretch is going to be unreal. I think if anything, it'll be like a doubler, on attack.
Yeah,
what I don't want to do, I always do this when you hop in and if you hop on and off good play, like really high quality players, and you've said, Antonio is probably a 10 million striker, right?
I agree.
He's probably on par with Vardy in terms of value, maybe a little bit less, but he's not far there. And what I don't even do is hopping on and off. I think we can get ahead in different ways in terms of holding on to him. So, but I think Bowen looks fantastic. I also think Fornals, I mentioned him weeks ago, is going under the radar. He just seems to return in, like every other game, which at his price is pretty decent. A few other ones, you mentioned Aubameyang. Obviously in terms of how predicted points are worked out, the most accurate predicted points system worked on a lot of historical data. Like, it's not just worked on the last 4 game weeks or, the last week and stuff. So, this is kind of how it's worked out. It's worked out on minutes as well. So Aubameyang was in, he's been in and out of the side a lot in the last year. And this is why I've been about applying your own layer of discretion on here, though I am surprised Aubameyang isn't in there. Another few players who I think have caught my eye fairly recently who aren't on this list. One is Trossard for Brighton. So I thought he was fantastic against Liverpool. And their next 3 fixtures, Brighton, are home to Newcastle, away to Aston Villa, who are struggling, and home to Leeds. And that's their next 3, Brighton. So I think he's 6.4 million midfielder. I think if you're looking for a short-term punt over the next 3 games, I don't think you can go far wrong, than Trossard in this period. He played as a false 9 against Liverpool.
Is that your shout that you were talking about?
He is my shout.
I can't argue with Trossard.
But the next 3 games, he played at false 9. He scored a goal, which was, I think he was offside, was he as well? Where he rounded the keeper, scored again. But yeah, I think he's the one. Another one or two.
I won't bet against Trossard. I think he's got a little bit of end product.
Yes,
I think
he's class.
I think sometimes he flatters to deceive in the sense that he maybe lacks consistency, and he'll get dragged off, etc. But I bought him. I remember bringing him in last year around the free hit time.
Yeah, I remember it was
game week 29 or 30.
It was, yeah,
and he was brilliant for me. And so.
Well, I
like Trossard.
I saw a stat earlier. He's played the full 90 for the last 8 games as well. So that's a big change from last year.
Isn't it?
It's very encouraging. So,
and he took Maupay's place up front, didn't he, the weekend? So yeah, I think that's a good. I think Trossard, really good shot.
I thought I'd get a beer back off you there with Trossard.
No. It's not a Traore or Pookie. And he's actually. I did look at. I've added Trossard to my watch list. The only thing is with, it's just a little bit too expensive, I think, for me to bring him in for Gray. I think he's 6.4.
6.4, I think. Yeah.
He's a little bit. I think he's a little bit overpriced in comparison to some of like the Smith Rowes and other players in and around that. But he's a very good shout, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did well this week.
Agree. Looking at Palace, Zaha. It may seem a little bit obvious, but his ownership doesn't suggest so. But he is on pens, and Palace look fantastic, and their fixtures are very, very nice moving forward as well for quite, for a hell of a long time actually. So I think that Palace could be a really good shout. Obviously Gallagher is one, especially if Milivojevic isn't playing, but I do think Zaha could be a nice pick there as well. And
I think on Palace, I think there'll be this game against Wolves is going to be really interesting to watch on who he starts up front, because I think he said something about. I really think the reason that he started Zaha, because he's played Zaha as a 9, didn't he, the weekend, and I think the reason he did that was to stretch. There was a lot of space in behind City, and obviously that worked. If you think about the sending off, if you think about obviously the first goal when they pressed them quite high and won the ball back, and I think against Newcastle, he expected them to sit off a little bit. And he thought, well, actually playing a big number 9 is going to work. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Benteke starting against Wolves, because there's probably not going to be that space to get in behind them as much as there was at City. But I think Zaha's a really, really good shout. About, I think Palace is definitely a team to look at. I think Gallagher is better, in my opinion, when Zaha's playing in that role, and when they get loads of space to counter attack. Because if you think of Gallagher's returns this season, he did well against Spurs, he did well against West Ham, he did well against it. It's all of the matches where teams aren't sitting back; they're going for it, and there's a bit more space. So that's why I don't really like owning Gallagher at the moment.
Okay, I think he's a great hold moving forward. I'd be looking to get him in, if anything. But
I just, it's that, I agree with you. And I think over a set of fixtures is great, but it's that predictability factor.
Of course, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there's certain players where they've got an easier, like, for example, you would not, ideally, particularly where we've got good squads and we can rotate, you want your points to be predictable. I would never have, before this week, never have predicted a 13-pointer for Gallagher away at City.
Oh, of course.
You almost want them to be performing in the easy fixtures to make it easy to predict. So that's, I know it's quite a complex, but I think I'm going to have to start Gallagher every week now, and just.
But he would normally be like a fourth mid, wouldn't he? I think, and this, we've touched on this a lot, haven't we, around the fact that players are too cheap this season, and there's a lot of value of cheaper players, and this is making him, almost a fifth mid, isn't it? Because we can afford to have this and this is the problem with when when you're basically splashing in cash, you can have whoever you want. You can, we did it last year. Remember we bench boosted whenever it was in game week 18, and it ended up with these massive squads full of Leeds players and all this kind of stuff, and we were benching like 20-30 points every single game week, and this is what happens. This is why I love having Keenan Davis in my team, because it just and I also love having a non-player 4 million keeper. I know that sounds kind of counterproductive, but for me it isn't, because it takes away 2 decisions every single week, and I much prefer that, not having to make like 5 decisions every week, just the 1 or 2.
Yeah, great.
Something in the chat about Zaha being a troll. I do think that's fair. So Relic returns, and someone else, sorry, I can't see, Daniel Pern, says Zaha the biggest FPL troll. I think the difference this year and the Vieira, and there was a lot of analysis on Match of the Day, and kind of in Zaha's own words as well as all the analysis on Palace themselves. Palace are a different team this season, massively different moving forward. So I think, in terms of, I think it's the same in looking at, Spurs and Mourinho and Nuno compared to what Spurs would be like under Conte. I think it's the same with Palace and Vieira, completely different entities, and they deserve to, be looked at in their own merit.
There's a few other players I want to throw into the mix, actually, that I think for offering more value.
Yeah.
So whilst we're talking about Palace, I mean, he's made Joel Ward look incredible. I think I'm so the transformation in that player. Wow, what a job he's done. But I think that defensively, I mean, they kept a clean sheet away at City and limited them to very little.
Right, yeah.
So I think Guaita as a goalkeeper, you're looking for a goalkeeper as an option.
We'll talk about that in a bit.
I think Well, yeah, because you might be priced out of Ramsdale, might you, without a move. So I think Guaita's a really good option, but I think also Tarek Mitchell potentially could be a good option. I think the other ones that I wanted to mention is Burnley. I quite like Burnley. I'll tell you why I like, because they got so much stick at the start of the season. Everyone was like, they don't deserve to be in this league. They're stuck in the 70s. But that's what I quite like about them. The sort of, we're going 4-4-2. I don't care. The sort of, we don't care. Everyone can hate us. We don't care sort of attitude. And I think they've got some great options. I think both fullbacks are good options. Loughton is, I was just about to say, I was saying that about Joel Ward, but Loughton's turned into Trent.
We mentioned Loughton a couple of weeks ago. This is our problem a lot of the times. Is we look so far ahead and we look at good that we don't get them bloody in, do we? But
I think Loughton's looked really good, and he had a little spell last season, but he's looking decent. I think you've obviously got Chris Wood and Cornet as well, and I think Cornet, it's just his minutes at the moment, but I think
that goal he scored on the weekend was unbelievable.
What, Wood's goal or Cornet's goal?
No, the Cornet goal. If Ronaldo had scored that goal, he'd be rammed down our throats all week. But his touch, his turn, smashed it in the top corner. It was an unbelievable finish. He is a hell of a player.
I think for $6 million,
I think it's a fantastic option.
Yeah, Chris Wood as well. He's doing all right, and I think particularly stats wise, I think he's looking fairly good. Always gets big chances. So
I'm just laughing. FPL Sponge says, Joel Ward, I just spat my risotto across the kitchen. I think Adam was more commenting on his improvement as a player rather than an FPL.
He's not an FPL pick. No. I just think he's got a lot better as a player. There was a stat on him actually.
Joel
Sky.
Ward.
He made something like nearly 100 passes in one game or something ridiculous. I think it was against Newcastle, and it's just like you wouldn't expect Joel Ward to be that sort of player. So yeah, I think he's improved. Vieira's definitely getting the best out of them. But I think
Captain Joel Ward.
Well, I don't know. We'll think about that one. But I think Burnley have got some good value options as well, and their fixtures improved, don't they, after Chelsea?
They do.
And actually, I think Burnley, on predictions, I think Burnley will score against Chelsea. Just got to think the last few games, I think they've looked attacking wise. They've got 2 at Saints, 3 the weekend. They're creating chances, and I think maybe a set piece or something. I could just see them scoring, and that's why. Yeah, I could see, and Chelsea actually, although the last couple of games have been good, they have had problems. Again, they had problems against Brentford, and they haven't looked as solid as as they did last season. So yeah, that.
Again, not love from Joel Ward. Ross says, he made 100 passes, 99 of them were square to the centre back, and James Harden says even Joel Ward has forgotten about Joel Ward. So, just so everyone knows,
that was just to put it into context.
No.
I've actually been surprised. The whole point with this, and you could look at a few of the players in the Palace team, was that I think they're actually playing quite well, and I don't really rate them as players. That was more the point. Is I think Vieira's done a good job there.
Relative Returns is asking the question: triple captain on Joel Ward for this game week, Adam, would you do it? Sorry. It's your turn to get a bit of stick now.
He's like the Keenan Davis.
It is like Keenan Davis, Joel Ward.
Best bit.
You watch, he's going to smash it this week. He's got to be your player
point scorer. I don't rate him for attacking returns. I just think he's done okay so far. But yeah.
He's good at passing to the centre back, to be fair. Just a couple of other players. I did notice last night. Obviously, Marsal's been out and Aït-Nouri was playing. He's 4.3 million.
Yeah.
He was on corners as well, though, which I was quite surprised at. So, I'm not saying for a minute, jump in and put a triple captaincy on Aït-Nouri, but it is worth monitoring because Wolves fixtures, they do go on and on for quite a while. Everton, Palace, West Ham, Norwich, Burnley. So for the next 5 weeks, they've got a fantastic run. It gets tough after that. But again, if you're looking for potential budget options to free up funds to go for Kane, for example, you could do worse.
How many good defensive options are there at the moment?
I've never known a season like it in terms of, I think options all over the pitch. Maybe not so much in attack, But in terms of defence and midfield, like
It's loads, isn't there?
you could name probably 15 fantastic options in each of those positions where you wouldn't bat an eyelid really, and half of them not in our teams, are they? Because we just can't get to them because we're kind of limited to this one transfer a week. But yeah, there's some fantastic options. There's one more player I just want to touch on, and I believe he's starting up front this evening for Man United. He's looked good and he's back from injury. And I think he could be an alternative to Ronaldo in Game Week 15. So if like at the moment, it obviously depends what happens in the next fortnight, right? Because I do play the ownership game, I'll hold my hands up. But if I don't go for Kane and I hold on to Antonio, I obviously haven't got that kind of easy route then, have I, to Kane onto Ronaldo. But I think Rashford has looked good and
he's looked really good. Yeah,
he's looked very good, and I do think he could potentially be an alternative to Ronaldo for when United's fixtures turn potentially Game Week 15 or 16. So I don't think, get him in now and rush in, unless you really want to, obviously. But they do have quite difficult fixtures still. They've got City and Chelsea in the next three. They've got Arsenal and Palace who are both playing well. But after that, they run, as we know, we've talked about it since the start of the season, right? They run after that is just sensational. But I do think he's worth monitoring because you can't get to Ronaldo. If you're quite happy maybe sticking with someone like, I don't know, Antonio or Kane, Bamford, maybe Baksu, maybe Calvert-Lewin, those kind of range of players. And you're just happy with Salah or more or less as a perma cap, or maybe Salah and Son potentially. I do think Rashford could be a decent option, but let's monitor and see how he does. But he's looked sharp, I think.
Well, there's the start. I think with Son and Rashford and Foden, there's becoming some good just below premium midfield options.
There are.
So that's why it could be good. I know a lot of people think players like Trent are essential, but I think if you freed up money, because I think in defence, there's players like Reece James, Chilwell, Cancelo that can probably match him for cheaper.
Yeah.
You could free up and get yourself Kane and Son, which could then become Ronaldo and Rashford, or you keep one of each.
Yeah, exactly.
So one Spurs, one. So I think that possibly could be the way to go. I do like that idea.
Okay. We've had some questions on Twitter. We've answered FPL Rivers one, I think, in terms of Spurs with Conte, and we've also answered Mark Bickley Draws one around premium forwards with the best alternatives. Mohamdi, best Raya replacement. So don't want to spend ages on on a keeper one by any stretch, but I've got the same dilemma this week. Can I just I'll tell you where I am with it in terms of options. So I've had four options I've been looking at. Ramsdale went up in price last night, so I'm priced out of Ramsdale, which I'm not that bothered about because he probably wasn't my first choice. If you asked owners after game week 9, I think what I thought of Ramsdale, would have thought he'd been a mistake on wildcard, but obviously because he got he had a sensational performance on the weekend. He got the 10-point. Everyone's like, oh, you got to go for Ramsdale now. But I'm still not convinced, even though I think Arsenal have improved defensively. I do think the fact that Ramsdale has to make so many saves does kind of err me on the side of, well, as soon as he stops being in sensational form and only goes back to good form, they probably will concede a lot of goals. So I was kind of off him anyway. McCarthy was potentially another one for Southampton. He's been in good form. They've got a long stretch of good fixtures, and Southampton's XGC, I think in the last few games, has been the highest in the league. But the two I'm kind of tossing up between is going back to Sanchez, which is a bit boring, a bit backwards, but I'm just trying to look objectively at the best pick. And Brighton are just solid, right? They're a solid team. You can expect, a lot of clean sheets. And you mentioned him earlier. The other one is Guaita for Palace. I had a quick look at ownerships and stats last night, just for context. So Sanchez was 18% owned, Guaita was 6% owned, and Palace is, surprisingly to me, the XGC and expected clean sheets. Palace's had been better than Brighton's so far this season. So that's the context. I'm currently leaning towards Sanchez, but I was interested in your thoughts on this as well. Mohamdi's interested as well.
Is that because of ownership?
What? Sorry, lean towards Sanchez?
Yeah, Sanchez because of ownership.
Not only towards ownership. I do think that Brighton are just a better defence. And also I was chatting with Luke Williams yesterday on one of the Twitter spaces, and he made a really, really good point, actually. He said that Brighton this season have proved they can keep clean sheets and defend well, with half their defence out. Which
very true.
And they're all coming back. Whereas if Palace miss, if Guehi or Anderson get injured and they go back to what they had last year, they may struggle a bit. I think that's those couple of things are deciding factors for me at the moment.
I think it's a tough one because of I think the best goalkeeping option. I do like Ramsdale for the saves, but yeah, I'd be tempted by Guaita because I think he's more likely to get. I think the ceiling's higher with him. The one frustration I've got with Sanchez is the ceiling. It's pretty much 6 is the ceiling, and that's been like that ever since he's come into the team. We had to celebrate his save points the other week. Now, I'm not saying Brighton aren't bad defensively, but I think with the likes of Lamptey, Dunk, there's more exciting options. Whereas who have you got in Palace as defence? Joel Ward. Yeah, it's triple captain Joel Ward. I just think that you'd be less. I don't know. I think I would probably go for Guaita, and I think he's doing some really good things at Palace at the moment. And I think any team that can go away and keep a clean sheet at City, they played really well away at Arsenal as well. I think I've been more impressed with them. I think. I think it's a ceiling on Sanchez. So it just taking the two teams out. I think if you look at the Guaita's history as well, he's had quite a few times where he's got like 10 pointers, and he's been quite good for save and bonus. So yeah, it's a tough one. I've
had a couple of conversations about this, and while I do agree, I think when I think about a keeper, all I want are clean sheets really, and anything else is just a bonus for me. I just want someone I can just be. I know they're going to start every week for a decent defensive team. And if I get a clean sheet, 6 points or 2 points, obviously, hope I get more 6s than 2s. But I'm happy with that, And I had it from game week 1 to 8 or 9, wherever it was. I think he had 3 clean sheets, so I think it's absolutely fine. But yeah, let's not talk forever of that because it's not the most exciting. We had a couple of questions from FPL Sponge. Best defensive assets to pair with TAA and Cancelo. Owns Laporte. And just quickly on Chelsea defence, I know we do this to death, so just for those who haven't seen this evening, both Chilwell and Reece James were both rested this evening, which probably intimates that they're going to start on the weekend, you would say, but we never know with these things. Who is your pick of the Chelsea defenders at the moment? If you had to pick one,
I'll answer that in 1 second, but I feel just to go back to your goalkeeper dilemma.
Oh, go on.
I've checked the Hub prediction tool, game week 11 to 18. I've put maximum budget 5.3. I know you haven't got that, so sort of rubbing it in a little bit.
Thank you, mate.
But top was Meslier, and second was Guaita. Sanchez is 6th. So
can you just whack it up to game week 28? Because he's going to be a set and forget until second wildcard.
Yeah, fair enough. I'd love to be able to do that, but unfortunately, the Hub
only goes up for 8 weeks.
It only goes up to so. But sorry, what was the question on Chelsea?
Who is the pick of the Chelsea defenders still? We know that James and Chilwell both rested this evening, so you guess that both will start on the weekend. But who would be your pick now? If you were wildcarding, you could only pick one Chelsea defender. Who would it be?
I'd pick 2. I'd go for James and Chilwell.
James and Chilwell are the 2 stars.
Yeah, I think if you've got financially, if you haven't quite got the funds, go for James. But I'm even debating at the moment. I've got Rudiger and Chilwell. I'm even debating making the change Rudiger to Chilwell, Rudiger to James. I just think they look so good, and over the long term, you don't need to worry about them playing because you've got Livramento.
I know that's right.
That's why, and I'm just thinking, is it worth it? It'd be a hit for me to do it. So probably, I probably won't do it. But the upside, as we've seen, is huge, isn't it, for those 2 players?
I think I'm slightly biased just from how Chelsea have performed in the past in terms of rotating that right back spot.
Yeah.
Last year, and I know this because in other formats I was really paying attention. James and Azpilicueta didn't rotate obviously every single game, but they rotated a lot, and they were also subbed on a lot, which is the reason I went for Chilwell over James. Now, that's historically, whether that carries on now, because as we know in FPL, things go through cycles, right? So James has he's done incredibly well in the last, the 2 or 3 games. I still wouldn't be that surprised. The Azpilicueta, start the next 1 or 2. I'm not saying he is, but things do go in cycles, and things surprise you as well. I think it's very much down to the opposition, and rest and rotation. So,
well, I've seen that Tickle mentioned before about playing Alonso against teams which play a little bit more direct. So there was always the thought.
There's the height thing as well, isn't there?
Yeah, but maybe against Burnley. If you were wild carding, would you have James and Chilwell?
I'm not sure. I don't know, but I'm really happy with Rudiger and Chilwell.
Yeah,
because I know Rudiger plays like 100%. I think Chilwell plays 80 or 90%. I think Reece James plays maybe 65 to 70%. So again, it's this whole like long-term thing. I don't want to be using transfers, messing around and wondering every week if my player is going to start or not. Obviously, we've missed out on Reece James's points over these last 2 game weeks. Well done to owners. You completely deserve it for taking a bit of a risk on Reece James, right? Because every week you're still not, no one can tell me, no Reece James owner can tell me they knew he was going to start, because no one knows. Rudiger's going to start. He starts every single game he's fit for. So I think I would still go Rudiger and Chilwell, and just hope that my management of the rest of my team makes sure that I can still, climb up. But well done to Reece James owners. You've seen massive rank rise the last 2 weeks. Absolutely superb. He's also asked another question. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Is moving out the likes of Rafinha or Vardy for the shiny new toys like Spurs or Brentford overthinking or smart playing the fixtures? It's a really good question. I think a lot of people are thinking this. And it's a common mistake that a lot of managers making it. They just kind of move on when, and this is what I mean with Antonio. He strikes me as the kind of player who could just keep on scoring points.
He hasn't been great. Just to balance it out on Antonio, though, he hasn't been great over the last 5 or 6 game weeks.
He's looked good though. He's been unlucky. He's been very unlucky.
I think he has been unlucky, but I don't personally. I'm not too worried about selling him. I think I'd regret not going for Tony more than keeping Antonio.
And that's a really good way of looking at it. Is that
so? Yeah, I just think there's more upside, yeah. And if it doesn't pay off, I can say, well, the Hub Predictor, which uses all of this data, said I should do it. So therefore, yeah, potentially. I mean, I really like Rafinha. I think he can do well against any team, and I think you've also got Bamford coming back, hopefully fairly soon. And I think what Bamford will add to that team is movement is exceptional. It'll create more space for Rafinha. So I think for me, I don't think there's a better midfielder in that price bracket than he's the talisman of the team. He's so good on set pieces. And I wouldn't be selling Rafinha this week or the next couple of game weeks. I think maybe in 4 or 5 game weeks Leeds fixtures turn. That's a different conversation. And we can see. But if he's carrying on this form, you only have to see what he did for Brazil. The guy, he's just a brilliant player.
He is.
And I mean, I can't believe anybody would have. The question I was going to ask you actually is, if you knew Rafinha was fit, let's say he hadn't had the injury, would you have sold him for Foden?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think because I think at the time when you sold him, it looked
he was on crutches.
Yeah. I didn't think he'd play. So,
and I would have left it a few days if I'd have had money in the bank, the wiggle room. But Foden was going up in 3 hours, so I just made a decision on that. But no, you are right. I would probably have held off. But again, like when I'm making a transfer, I consider a lot of different factors, and whichever side it kind of lands on is the one I go. And I thought the fact, well, actually, I think it's a positive forward-thinking move anyway. And in my view, there was a high chance Rafinha wouldn't be fit, because you're looking at the tackle, looking at his reaction, and that he left the stadium on crutches. It was like, there's no way he's going to play. So But I think if I'd have had the wiggle room, I'd probably held on and made it later in the week, and maybe then not made it at all, I suppose. But it's all ifs and buts. And like I say, I'm very comfortable with the decision to do it, because I still think at the time I know why I did it, and I still think I made the right decision at that time. And I still think it's a forward-thinking move, because obviously Foden blanked. It means that people won't be so high on Foden over the coming weeks, and when he smashes again, either next week or the week after that, people will be jumping on Foden. I've already got him, and people will be jumping off Rafinha soon. I think you mentioned his fixture swing, so I'm trying to constantly get my team into a place where I want it to be for the next 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think just going back, there is a point I do want to make on what you're saying here. So maybe going off the players like Rafinha, Vardy, etc. I remember last season, I'm pretty sure it was around when Vardy's fixtures turned and a lot of people ditched him after a run. I think he had Spurs away and got a goal and assist, and he's just that sort of player. I wouldn't be surprised if Vardy, I wouldn't be surprised if he returned against Leeds, but then even against Chelsea at home, you wouldn't be surprised if Vardy got a goal then, would you? He's just, and I think what we saw this weekend, what was quite interesting, I think one of the challenges we're going to have, particularly with squad management, is we saw Ronaldo turning what was supposedly a tough fixture away at Spurs. You saw Gallagher and Zaha returning a supposedly tough fixture. You saw Smith Rowe and Ramsdale returning a supposedly tough fixture. So what do? Do you play the fixture or do you play your best 11? And I think we're going to have that dilemma. Like take me with Conor Gallagher. There will be games where on paper I've got players that have got better fixtures in, and Livramento, Gray, or whoever. Obviously I'll probably been Gray at some point, but do you play the fixtures and maybe the percentages, or do you think, do you know what, I'm going to consistently start my best 11, and therefore I'll have the vet when those players haul, I'm definitely going to get the points. So I think it's a tough one, because I think a lot of people started Foster over Ramsdale.
It's the never-ending question of FPL, and this is why I don't like having a strong bench. It's purely that reason, because I hate regretting things. I hate that over anything. I would rather not score points than having something available to me and I made the wrong 50-50, if that makes sense, because it's that whole regret thing after. Why did I change the captaincy? Why did I switch my keeper? Why did I change that bench around? I really don't enjoy it, and I think it's part of the reason why I've gone for Keenan Davis. He's such an important part of my team mentally for me, because he takes away a decision, and I honestly mean that. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it is. Because
I get it.
I just leave him, and if it was up to me, if I hadn't got Livramento at 4 million, I'd probably have a 4 million defender in that spot as well, just to kill it. It's just the fact that Livramento plays every week for 4 million or 4.1 million is why I bought him. But if it was, Manquillo, I'd be quite happy having him sat there, just dead on my bench every week. Because again, it takes away a decision every week. Like this week now, we'll come onto our teams in a bit, but I'm benching Livramento again and benching Cancelo this week. And it's just, I know it's going to bite me in the ass. I know it is, but there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do because my bloody team's so strong.
Well, there is something you can do. You can bench other players.
Well, I don't know who. We'll have a look in a bit anyway. Let's move on to my team up. Didn't want my team up yet. Flipping heck. Let's move on to the results from game week 10 predictions, Adam.
Oh yeah.
And actually, so the algorithm scored 11 points. So it predicted 2 exact scores and also predicted another 5 correct results. Adam, you scored 4. So you predicted 4 results and I scored 3. So follow the algorithm because it knows what it's talking about. It's unbelievable. Let's have a look at this week's one then. And Adam, do you want to give your predictions for this week's games? I will do the same. So firstly... Should we go from one game at a time, yeah? Yes. Southampton and Villa first.
I think based on... Villa need to get a result, but I don't think we'll win. So I am going to go for a 1-1 draw.
All draw. I think Southampton are going to win 2-1. Man United and Man City.
I think 2-0 City.
2-0 City. I think 1-0 City. Brentford and Norwich.
I am going to go with Brentford because I'm bringing in Tony. I think it's going to be 3-1.
I'm going to say the same 3-1. I fancy that as well. Chelsea and Burnley.
I know I said I thought Burnley would score, but 2-0 sticking out to me. I know, yeah, but it's different when you're doing the predictions. I'm trying. 2-0 sticking out to me as a scoreline. I'll go 2-0.
I go for 1-1 because I think this is going to be a tough game for Chelsea. I like Burnley. I think Burnley are a good team, and I go for 1-1 there. Palace and Wolves.
I think this is a tough one to call.
They're both on form, aren't they?
Yeah, it's something. I'm going to go 1-1. It's got a 1-1 feel about it, that game.
I think Palace are going to win 2-1. Brighton and Newcastle.
Wow, this was the match last season where Trossard, I think, got a goal and an assist.
Oh, geez.
It's one fun memories of this game. I'm going to back Brighton to win comfortably, and I'm going to go 2-0 Brighton.
I'm going to go 2-1 Brighton. Arsenal and Watford.
I think it's hard to back against Arsenal. I'm gonna go 3-0 Arsenal.
I'm gonna go 3-1 Arsenal. Everton and Spurs.
I am gonna go. This might shock you. I am gonna go 3-1 to Spurs.
3-1 to Spurs. I'm gonna go 2-1 to Spurs. And Leeds and Leicester.
I am going to go 2-1 to Leicester.
2-1 to Leicester. Leeds and Leicester. I'm going to go. Yeah, I think you're right. I'm going to go 2-1 there as well. And finally, West Ham and Liverpool.
I think Liverpool will win. I think West Ham will score. So I will go 3-1 to Liverpool.
3-1 to Liverpool. I'm going to go 2-1 to Liverpool. I think Liverpool will score a late winner, as they tend to do in these sorts of games, don't they? So just through and through what the algorithm thinks. The algorithm thinks Southampton are going to beat Villa 2-1. They think Man City are going to beat
Have you just copied the algorithm?
No, I haven't. No.
Is that what you've done?
It thinks Man City are going to beat United 3-1. It thinks Brentford are going to beat Norwich 2-1. It thinks Chelsea are going to beat Burnley 3-1. It thinks Wolves are going to beat Palace 2-1. It thinks Brighton are going to beat Newcastle 2-1. Arsenal are going to beat Watford 2-1. Everton are going to beat Tottenham 2-1, interestingly enough. But obviously it's based on form so far this season. Leicester are going to beat Leeds 2-1. And Liverpool are going to beat West Ham 3-2 in an absolute thriller. Really good point in the chat of Guy Parfit about no clean sheets according to the algorithm. No, it doesn't. It doesn't think because no team other than Man City have got outstanding XGC, and obviously Man City have got Man United this week. It doesn't predict any clean sheets. I think it's going to be goals in every game. So that's just what it is. But it's hard to argue because last week they had 2 exact results right and another. What did I say? Another five results on top of the scoreline.
I think you've just copied every result of the algorithm.
I haven't. I haven't.
I reckon you have. Every result. Yes, you have. So you've gone for Southampton to beat Villa. The algorithm said that. Man City to beat Man U. Brentford, Norwich. Chelsea, Burnley. Palace 2-1. You said you've gone for that.
I haven't.
Brighton 2-1 Newcastle. You've gone for that. You've gone for an Arsenal win.
I haven't.
Okay, the only one you haven't got is Everton.
It's not the only one. Absolutely.
You've gone for 9. You've gone for 9 of the 10.
I haven't.
You've seen a little cheat here that you.
No, I haven't.
So you can just because you lost to me last week, you thought, do you know what? I'm going to copy the algorithm.
I've gone for Palace to beat Wolves, and he's got Wolves to beat Palace on here.
Yeah.
No, I've gone the other way around. I have.
Fair enough. I thought you said it was Palace. I thought the algorithm had Palace to beat Wolves.
No, we had Wolves to beat Palace.
Oh,
2-1.
okay, fair enough. I'll take it back.
Yeah. Other than that, a lot of them are, a lot of them are similar. But like I say, it is based on, Everton and Spurs is a surprise one for you. But obviously it is based on the stats so far this season.
In fairness, the algorithm does not know about Conte, does it? So.
It doesn't yet. Relic Returns says it's the Fergi rhythm, which it is. I'm hoping to refine this over the next few weeks. I was thinking as well, it's interesting because all the data is based on the whole season so far. I was thinking of doing it as well. Maybe not, not for this show to kind of bore everyone with, but maybe doing it over the last 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and then whole the season to see at the end of the season which one is the best predictor. Because it's very, very tough, isn't it, in terms of saying in terms of form, because if you looked at that Everton Spurs, you would say that is clearly an incorrect prediction.
Yeah,
but it is based on the season so far. Whereas if you base it over the last couple of weeks, it may be the other way around. So, but anyway,
I think it might be worth, with the clean sheet thing. Do you like not 0.5 off both scores, and if it's lower than. Yeah. If it's lower than 0.5, you could give it a clean sheet, or we might be good for us to throw in a criteria which constitutes a clean sheet.
That's a good shout, that is. I think
because then we can give the algorithm even more credit on its prediction.
We can. We'll keep on refining.
Maybe that's what we do. Is we work together with our crap predictions and keep refining the algorithm so we can get it perfect.
We can. We will continue refining. Hope you enjoy it. Obviously, I know it's a bit mishmash, but hopefully it gives you a few ideas on where potentially the goals are coming from and things like that. Game week 11 captaincy, tough one this week. I think it's it's a lot tougher than we think. Put a poll out earlier on at FFH_HQ. Salah came top, 65% of the vote. Chelsea defenders came second with 15%. Vardy against Leeds, 12%, and Son against Everton, 7%. We did have some big shouts in there for Tony and Aubameyang as well. Where's your head at the moment, Adam, in terms of captaincy for game week 11?
Well, the first thing is, if you want to benefit from having Salah, you have to captain him. That's the reality, because he's probably the only player that will be comfortably above 100% effective ownership. I think he had the record, didn't he, this week in terms of captaincy?
It was 199.4 in the top 10k. It's absolutely insane, isn't it?
I don't have a strong enough argument to back against him by looking at the other options, because I just think I want all my players to do well, and you want to celebrate your captain scoring goals. And do you really want to be backing against Salah that much? It's just hard. It's hard to back against purely because of the ownership, and that if you want your players to do well. And I don't think there's another real standout. Looking at some of the other options, I think one place you could go is a Chelsea defender. And I can see the arguments of both Reece James and Chilwell. But then Burnley could score, couldn't they? And that would just ruin, I can see the logic. If I'm looking at it logically, and if I do the math, and then obviously the Chelsea play Sunday, Liverpool play Sunday as well, would ruin you. These factors are factors though, because for me anyway, because and you've got in the back of your head what Salah did versus Man United. I just think it's hard. It's hard to back against Salah when there isn't a real compelling other option. I think Chilwell or Reece James are viable captain options if you want to take a gamble. I think it's worth doing, but I think most people might have 2 Chelsea or even 3 Chelsea defenders anyway. So I don't know.
I've got in the back of my mind what happened in game. Was it game week 9? I think when Salah scored the hat trick against Man United, and and people were brave and went for Havertz or went for other options. Yeah. Even people went for Chilwell and Reece James, who scored wherever it was 12 or 13 points respectively. But I just think with and I know it's a boring way of thinking, but this week again, I think it is a case of just choosing your battle, because we spend so much time choosing our picks and being very intricate and choosing all the right picks. If not captaining Salah is a massive risk, because even if you do pick some great picks, right, if Salah does it again with his effective ownership, it means all those picks have gone to waste, because those who went, just for example, those who went Havertz over Salah in game week 9 missed out on 21 points, which is basically, not far off Reece James's haul this week. So that's the main reason why I'm just a bit like, I don't see the need to challenge it. I think there will be a challenge in game week 12 with Kane against Leeds. I think there will be in 15 with Kane against Norwich, and 16 Ronaldo against Norwich. But I just think at this time in these specific weeks, go with the crowd and save it for another day, because the variance is so high if you miss out, as shown in game week 9. I saw people in game week 9 like more than quadruple their rank if they missed out on the Salah captaincy. So you're gambling on, let's say for example, if you're a rank at 100k and you go for a defender for Chelsea, you could hit the top 10k or higher if Reece James bangs in another 15 pointer and Salah fails. On the flip side, if you captain Salah, you'd probably rise to maybe 50, 60k. So you're still getting that nice green. If the opposite happens, you could go down to 500 or 600k, which wouldn't happen if you'd have captain Salah. So I just don't think it's worth it in these risks.
I don't think there's anybody that is enticing enough to take you away from Salah.
Exactly.
I think looking at our predictions, I've gone for West Ham to win 3-1. Sorry, Liverpool to win 3-1. I think the predictor is saying 3-2. So the reason that's quite good is we're both, and I think you're backing West Ham to score.
Yeah.
So that's great for Salah's bonus as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'll go with Salah this week.
Cool. And just looking at the predicted points on the hub for game week 11 only, Salah is top on 6.4. Chilwell is second on 6.3. And Tony is third on 6.1. Like I say, James would probably be on par with Chilwell, but there is the thing that he tends to get rotated a little bit more. So it's very, very close. Well, here examples now in the chat. SI went from 9k to 80k because he captained Havertz captain against Salah. That's really tough luck, SI, and this is why we say every single week, if you go in against the most highly owned captaincy option when the EO is going to be 180% plus, like it probably will this week, just purely because of the fact that there's no massive alternatives, then you are gambling. You're gambling your rank, which you've worked so hard to work to. So anyway, let's move on. And for some reason, we got my team first on for some reason this week, so we'll go through my team first. So I've got Raya. So like I say, I think I'm going to Sanchez with my free transfer, which I'm gutted about because I would have loved to have saved a transfer going into international break, which could potentially mean I could have got Kane for a -4, making 3 transfers for game week 12, which would really move my team forward. But it is what it is. I'd have to suck it up really. So I'll probably play Sanchez home to Newcastle. Then got Trent, Chilwell and Rudiger. So listen to this, Adam, for a dilemma. I've then got Mbomo home to Norwich, Foden, Son, Salah captain and Havertz, Antonio and Tony. And on the bench, I've got Livramento and Cancelo, and obviously Keenan Davis. But who would I play Cancelo ahead in that team there?
Okay, well, let's go back to your predicted scores. You predicted City to keep a clean sheet.
Yes, I did.
You said 1-0, and I predicted them to keep a clean sheet. So we've got 2 people saying we think they're going to keep clean sheet. So you also predicted that West Ham would score. You've got Antonio playing, assuming that you think West Ham would score. So based on that logic, you should play Cancelo ahead of Trent.
I could never drop Trent, never ever. But and I tell you for why. I tell you for why.
I know.
Boxing Day, Leicester took him out my team, scored a 24-pointer. Never again. He's too good.
I think looking at your team at the moment, you're going to play Tony, you're going to play Havertz, Salah, Son, Foden, and Buemo. You're going to play 2 Chelsea defenders. You've just told me you're playing Trent. So your choice really is between Antonio, Livramento, and Cancelo. And I think a lot of people will have that dilemma this week.
Yeah, I don't.
I would go personally. I would go Cancelo
over Antonio.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I think City will keep a clean sheet, and I think West Ham will score. I think West Ham will score one, but I'm not 100% convinced Antonio will be involved. I think he might play well and cause some problems, but I'd be more confident in Cancelo returning this weekend than I would Antonio. But that's just my thought. It's more fun playing the striker. So
I think Antonio is going to score against Liverpool, because I don't think Liverpool are that great defensively, but I also know that Trent is only a whisker away from assists and goals himself as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the reason. I'll think about it, but again, I tend to play ownership as well. Seeing Antonio's still got very, very high ownership as well, and
so is Cancelo, hasn't he? No.
Yeah, it's not as high as Antonio, and I can see Cancelo being benched a fair bit this game week actually. But that's where I am. Quite happy going forward. I'm just so disappointed I've got to use a goalkeeper transfer, because, like I say, I think if I hadn't have had to do that, I think I'd be in a really good spot going forward. But it is only a -4 at the end of the day anyway. But anyway, that's my team. Moving on to yours. You want to run through your team and your thoughts?
Yeah. So Sanchez in goal, Trent, Rudiger, Cancelo, and Chilwell, who's got the V. He's got the V at the moment.
Wow.
The VC. And then I've got Salah, Super Conor Gallagher, Havertz, and Rafinha. And then I've got Antonio and Vardy. And my bench isn't quite as good as yours. Livramento, Gray, and Captain Scarlett.
It's a good team.
My thought at the moment is that I do like Antonio. And my original thought, I could save all that. But I'm going to need money. Whether I want Son or whether I want Kane, I'm going to need money. And looking where I can take money out, it's very difficult. I don't want to lose Vardy, because I think against Leeds, I think it's more likely he hauls than Antonio hauls. And so I think that's more likely to happen the weekend. I've got no money invested in Antonio. I might have 0.1 million, but there's not too much in there. And the player that I fear most the weekend is Tony, because he's playing Norwich, and Norwich are terrible. So my thought, the other option I could do is Gray to Mbeumo. That's a possibility. Or I could do Gray to, I don't think I've got enough for Trossard. I could go Gray to Smith Rowe if I wanted to go down that route. Both of those are viable options, but it still comes down to next week. How do I get Kane, or how do I get Son? And both of those options do not create any money for me. So that straight away puts me in hit City next week after, and there's probably going to be injuries and all sorts. So if I take, we've just looked at the predictor for both this week and the next 4 or 5 game weeks. Tony's right up there. So if I do the Tony move, and I trust him more than Mbeumo, I just think he's as nailed as he's as nailed as there is. And I think he just needs a goal as well. I just think something that's just gonna. I think a goal comes, a hat trick could come. I just think that's a sort of. So I think I'm going to make that move, and then it frees up the option next week. I'll be about 0.1 or 0.2 short of doing Havertz to Son, but I can then do Vardy to Kane. And even if it makes it very easy within 2 moves to bring Son in, even if it's taking a hit, I can do minor downgrades without having to, it just means a -4. So I could do, for example, Gray to a 5.3 or 5.4 option.
There was a suggestion in the chat that actually, this is off Guy Parfit, recommends you should downgrade Gray to Brownhill maybe next week and save this week potentially.
I do like that. I do like that shout, and I think that will help me. It will help me going forwards. But I think
you got no Brentford against Norwich then, if it was the problem.
Yeah, like I said, I fancy myself against Norwich. I'd fancy it. Pretty much every Chelsea player, other than Havertz, every Chelsea player hold against them. If you look at all the players that have scored against them, it's just ridiculous. So
I agree.
I don't really, and it's got Newcastle the week after. So if any striker is going to haul in the next 2 games, it's Tony. And so I think I'm going to have to make the move. I do like Guy's suggestion, and it's a possibility that I will do the Gray to Brownhill at some point, because it then makes it easier to just keep picking my 4-4-2. And I'm not having those bench dilemmas like I had this week. So I think that's a really good suggestion from Guy. But I think if I didn't have Tony this week and he did haul, I think I'd be kicking myself because I'm releasing the funds I need as well for later on.
I'd be tempted if I were you, and completely different thing. I'd be tempted to go Vardy down to Tony, which means you can just easily upgrade Havertz to Son in one move. I think that's what I would do. But
then the thing with that is that the following, if I want Kane, then I'm going to have to lose Antonio anyway. I'm fine losing Antonio because I watched him the weekend. I watched him versus Spurs. I didn't think he was that good. Okay. I thought, well, from an FPL perspective, to be clear,
that's fair.
And the first half, he wasn't involved at all. The first half versus Spurs, he wasn't really. And I'm not saying he won't have a good season and go on, but I think the next 5 game weeks, we always say fixtures lead to form.
You're going to want him back, though. You're going to want him back in 5 game weeks.
And I'll get him back in 5 game weeks.
But you're booking in transfers. That's I
might not. I might not get him back in 5 games. I might go for Bowen. I might go for Bowen. I might go.
There's no way you will go for Antonio. There's no way with those fixtures.
But if you're looking in 5 game weeks, that's when Man United really take and have an upturn in form.
And they've just lost again. They've just lost again this evening, and Varane apparently just got off injured as well, or they're losing. I should say.
Oh right, okay. But then it could be then that I want because of this is the problem. Is also having Antonio makes it very difficult for me to have both Kane and Son as well. If I wanted to go down that route, it's just that.
I agree with that.
Yeah. It's I factored everything in, and I think if I'd bought Antonio for 7.5, which I did, but obviously I sold him for Bamford on wildcard. So if I have money invested in him, I'd be less inclined to do this move.
Makes sense.
But I don't. So I think he'll get a couple of goals, but I think Tony will more than justify it. And it's the funds it frees up. It's Tony, and it's just a little bit of that's my thought process. But I can understand why people would keep Antonio, but I'm just backing. As much as I was saying about Tony's stats last week, I've looked into it and I just think the fixtures are just so good.
They're insane. And they're insane for like 5 weeks on the trot. Norwich, Newcastle, Everton, 3 of the worst defenses at the moment. Then they've got Spurs. Okay, they may bring against Spurs. And then they got Leeds. And then they got Watford. 5 of those next 6 are unreal. So that's why I've doubled up. I've gone for it in terms of doubling up, and I'm really hoping they can be rewarded this year. This week when people are still thinking about it, but I'd be amazed if people are not on the double up in a week or 2. But anyway,
yeah, maybe. I just the reason I'm not as sold on it as well is Brentford did look really bad against Burnley, and you just don't know how much the goalkeeper's going to impact them. Because I think Raya was he's a top keeper. And it's the confidence that pushes through the team. I'm a big believer in that.
No, I agree. I massively agree with that. If you remember last year, when Liverpool were on that awful run, that terrible run, and they were even on a terrible run when everyone triple wildcarded them in game week 31, and they changed instantly because these teams, they fixtures bring form. And that's a truth, especially a fixture against Norwich. Ronaldo's just equalised, by the way, against Atlanta. I was just saying, don't go for Ronaldo, go for Rashford.
But that's the reason. So just to be clear on all of this, and the Antonio move frees up the money so that I can go for Kane and potentially Ronaldo further down the line. I also quite fancy Foden still, so I think I can do Havertz to Foden then. So you can't have everybody, and that's I'm sacrificing Antonio for a bad fixture run, and I may even go to Bowen afterwards when it turns around because I really like Bowen at the moment.
I like Bowen as well. I'll probably do a double up, I think.
Yeah. But then I'll no doubt have another player with good fixtures. So we'll see.
Andrew Wheatley says Kane plays so deep now he'll be getting clean sheet points next year.
I like that. That's
Okay. Competition time for our YouTube watchers. And firstly, Game Week 10 winner, Reece James, 21 points. There was a few correct entries. I think there was 3 or 4 actually. So well done for those picked in. The random winner was Khan Sharma. So well done, Khan. Drop me a DM and we'll send you a mug off in the post there. Many, many congratulations. For this week's competition, a chance to win one of our fantastic Fantasy Football Hub mugs. You need to like this video. So please press like if you want to compete. Make sure you're subscribed. And then comment on who will be the top point scorer in Game Week 11. Adam, who do you think will be the top point scorer in Game Week 11?
Oh, Joel Ward. Joel Ward.
I was going to say Joel Ward just to wind you up.
Can't believe. No, I'm not going Joel Ward. I don't think Joel Ward will be the top point scorer. Okay, wow. I'm looking at my predictions. I'm going to go for. Well, we always say a defender. Defenders tend to do quite well in this, don't they? So if I look where I've suggested clean sheets, Chelsea's probably the only. If we've got Chelsea, Brighton, I don't think there'll be anybody there. No, do you know what? I'm going to go for Lewis Dunk.
Lewis Dunk, cool.
Yeah,
no, I like that.
That's a 15 pointer from a goal and a clean sheet.
Sherwin Spogter says Pookie lol. Thank you very much. I'm going to back my hunch of his next 3, and I think Trossard is going to get.
Trossard's a great shout.
2 returns this weekend, so I'm going to I'm going to win the mug. I'm going to actually win a mug this time. Okay. Finally, let's take a look at the standings after Game Week 10 in the @FFH_ Green Arrow Mini League. In 10th place, Preston Redslav. 9th place, Marcus Holmfist. 8th, Oliver Radcliffe. 7th, Mark Langley. 6th, John Leith. 5th, Steve Sedman. 4th, Charlie Vant. 3rd, Dean Simmons. 2nd, Harry Jones. And top, Joe Widowson, who scored 85 points this week and is currently 8th overall in the world. So very, very, very well played, Joe Widowson. What a game week. And what a performance. Fantastic stuff there. Make sure that if you're not in our mini league, you join. There will be a Fantasy Football Hub goodie bag prize and free premium membership for first place. The mini league code is QDASZ2. Our YouTube watchers can join using the auto join link in the description below, and I've just popped that in the chat now for anyone who is watching. Just copy and paste it and join our mini league. So that is it from us for this week. A long one. I thought it'd be a short one because we only had the one section mainly on Spurs, but it turned out to be a long one with Adam's dilemma over Antonio and Tony. But a very common one, I think, this week due to the ownership of both players. Fantastic stuff, Adam. Thank you so much, as usual, for joining me. Where can people get hold of you?
On Twitter, Hopcroft13.
Cool. And my Twitter handle is @FFH_Fergi. If you want to follow us, both our handles are under our respective photos on screen. So this podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watch, please press the like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. And if you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It would be much, much appreciated. And any feedback at all, on the podcast, in terms of the format, the length, in terms of us, really, if you'd like us to spruce up a little bit more, see, Adam, could do just combing his hair over maybe a little bit more. Any comments at all, just let us know. We're always looking to improve and produce the best value we possibly can. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are @FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is @FFH_Green Arrow. Make sure you drop us a follow. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta-stats, top player team reveals, point predictions tools, and much, much more. To join the tens of thousands of other fantasy managers and sign up to the Hub, choose all our amazing resources, just click the top link in the description below. You will not regret it. Guy says, haven't caught you guys much live this season. Very much a pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Josh Brocklehurst. Daniel Pern, first time he's caught it live. We hope you enjoyed, Daniel. Relic Return says, best live FPL podcast. Thank you so much, everyone. City Eagle as well, and Buckers. Thank you so much all for your very, very kind words. We will likely be back in 2 weeks, looking ahead to game week 12. Enjoy the international break if you can. Stay safe and may all your arrows be green. Good night all.